Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to Today in Bitcoin. Today is March the 23rd, 2017, and we are going to just jump right into this thing. This is the day of the Roger Ver interview. I know many of you have been looking forward to this. We will talk some scaling, but let's find out more about Roger here. Not everyone knows him. I don't want this to be like the other interviews and debates. We've seen all of them and they're kind of getting old. So Roger, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me and helping me present the other side of the issue here.
All right, so we're gonna talk about a lot of different things here. So let's start from the beginning. You have been in Bitcoin for quite some time. How did you get interested? Did you know Satoshi or ever email him? And what did you think about him being anonymous?
So I don't know if I've ever emailed with Satoshi, not that I'm aware of. I got into Bitcoin though because my hobby from a young age as a teenager had been studying economics, and most things that I get interested in, I dive in, head first, and I, read every single economics book I could get my hands on for a while, for everything from, Karl Marx to von Mises, and everything in between. And then when I saw Bitcoin, I realized that it was the best form of money the world has ever seen, because you could send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere in the world, instantly, basically for free at that time. And there wasn't anything anyone could do to stop that. And so I knew that people were going to start using Bitcoin as money without any government or any bank or any company telling them that they should use Bitcoin as money. I knew that they were going to just start to use it naturally because it had all the characteristics that make something money. And so sure enough, here we are 6.5 years later, and people are using Bitcoin all over the world, and it's more and more popular than ever before. And people did start using Bitcoin as money. And eventually, part of my concern in the scaling debate will tie into why I'm so concerned about the future of Bitcoin at this point.
So Satoshi, I just want to make sure that you're not Satoshi, and that he's totally anonymous, correct? Totally anonymous, at least in your mind.
Yeah, we don't know who Satoshi is, and okay. Whoever he is, it's pretty clear he wants his privacy, so he deserves to have that.
So that's for me, that's like a huge part of Bitcoin, just having this dude that he can't be tracked down, that the founder is anonymous. I mean, is that important for Bitcoin? Is that a big selling point for Bitcoin?
For me, that's one of the least interesting things. What's interesting to me is the characteristics that make Bitcoin useful as money. And it doesn't matter who made that. It's the fact that it does exist. So, and the whole world is better off because it exists. But it doesn't matter if it was, one person or a group of people or, a space alien. It doesn't matter who made it, but now we have it.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about your anarchist tilt a little bit here, but going into that conversation of anarchism and what I guess got you there, how did that happen? How are you an anarchist? And what do you think of the United States, Japanese, and Chinese governments?
So I prefer the word voluntarist, which basically means that all human interactions should be on a voluntary basis or not at all. And I didn't start out this way. In fact, I wound up becoming a voluntarist or an anarchist from studying economics. And the more economics books I read and the more I studied, the more I realized that government intervention in the economy prevents the economy from growing as quickly as it otherwise would be. And the way to help the most people around the world have the highest standard of living is through economic growth. So if you look around the world at rich countries and poor countries, you would much, much, much rather be a poor person in a rich country than a poor person in a poor country. And in lots of cases, you'd rather be a poor person in a rich country than a rich person in a poor country. And so if you look around the world, that's just so clear. So the more economics I studied, the more and more in that direction I started to lean. And then later on, I started studying the philosophy behind it as well. So in all of our daily lives and interactions with everybody, it's all on a voluntary basis. I messaged you and asked if I could be on your show. And then you asked me, okay, would you like to be on the show? And neither of us threatened either of us to come on the show and do this. When you go to Starbucks doesn't threaten you to buy their coffee. They don't say, you're going to buy our coffee every day or we're going to lock you in a cage. And every single business that everybody deals with on a daily basis is on a consensual basis where you choose to buy their product. And if you don't want to buy it, that's the end of it. You don't. with the one giant glaring exception of government. If you don't participate in governments and buy their services, they will lock you in a cage. And if Starbucks threatened to lock people in a cage for not buying their coffee, people would be appalled. They'd be shocked. They'd say, "You can't do that. That isn't right. How dare you threaten to lock people in a cage if they don't buy your product?" But when politicians get together and do the exact same thing and threaten people to buy their government services, and if they don't pay for them, they're going to be sent to jail, people are silent and they don't see the double standard, I think, mainly because they're taught from a very young age that government has an exception to morality and they can threaten people to do things. And when government does it, it doesn't count as being immoral. If any private individual did the exact same things, everybody would be appalled by it.
Do you have a specific opinion on the United States government or Japanese or Chinese government? I bring up Japanese because you are in Japan right now, so you have to deal with them. Are all the governments the same in your head?
I think any use of force, any initiation of force on peaceful people is immoral. So if I think the best way to sum up why I'm opposed to all governments is there's a 4-minute video on YouTube and it's called "George Ought to Help." And I can't recommend that video strongly enough for pointing out just how immoral what government is, what they're doing is. So George Ought to Help. Feel free, when you're watching this on YouTube, pause this for a minute, watch that 4-minute video, and I think you'll really start to see the world in a different way. It's called "George Ought to Help."
Okay. Now, the United States government they haven't been that great to you. There's a history. Do you think they would arrest and imprison Satoshi Nakamoto if they knew who he was?
They arrest and imprison people for growing plants and send them to jail for years and years and years. So the U.S. government has no problem dropping bombs on kids around the world, and the U.S. government does whatever they want. They're, I think, the biggest danger to world peace that we have at the moment. So, of course, I don't support the United States government.
So we would have to, I say, with me in the government, I'm just like, stay out of our private business matters. Just, I assume you agree with that. The government should
of course, stay out of my entire life altogether. I want nothing to do with those people whatsoever.
Nothing to do with any of any of government. It doesn't matter. Japanese, you don't have a difference of opinion. I mean, you don't think the Japanese government's been better to you or anything like that. I mean, you're in Japan.
The Japanese government haven't locked me personally in jail, but I'm not a fan of the Japanese government either. I'm not a fan of any group of people that get together and threaten other people with violence if they don't, bend to their will. So of course I don't support any government, period.
Well, I mean, so let's move on from governments there. We definitely see your perspective. I like, we're getting some inside information here. What are your plans for Bitcoin.com? You own Bitcoin.com from what I understand. What are the plans for Bitcoin.com?
Yeah, I'm trying to build it into the most useful portal in the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, where people can get and learn and use everything that they could possibly want to do with Bitcoin. So right now we have a news site, we have a forum, we have live chat, we have all sorts of stuff. We have our own wallet that's coming out here very, very shortly. We have a mining pool. And we're adding more and more stuff. We have quite a substantial team. We just hired 2 more full-time developers this week. So we're really growing quickly and looking to make it, I guess, your premier centralized source for everything decentralized. We've been joking around that may become our slogan. So.
All right, so you're obviously huge name in Bitcoin, huge name in the scaling debate. Just having Bitcoin.com is just a very valuable commodity. Has the mainstream media contacted you about the block size debate yet?
Yeah, just about every day.
Every day. So the mainstream media wants to talk to you and interview you, and because I mean, I haven't seen. I guess did Forbes quote you? I don't even know.
Yeah, so there was a Forbes article maybe 2 days ago about the whole scaling debate by Laura Shin. And I spoke with her on the phone for maybe about an hour for that article, but it was pretty clear when I was speaking with her that she was a SegWit fan, and lots of her comments were, "Well, don't you think you should adopt SegWit first? And don't you think SegWit this? And don't you think SegWit that?" And I thought it was kind of strange that a reporter was trying to guide me into what my opinion should be or influence me. I thought her job is to maybe just report on the current situation of the scaling debate. So the core and SegWit supporters definitely have a friend in Laura Shin.
Well,
but I'm still happy to talk to her the next time. So.
Yeah, she's a smart woman. I mean, so I mean, you're big. I mean, when people want to talk about this, want to talk about the your side, they're coming to you. I mean, you are synonymous with this movement, this block size thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You're the guy. I mean, Would
I
you
don't
agree?
think that's entirely fair. No, there's a huge, huge number of people that are very, very upset with Bitcoin's usability as money being undermined. And if Bitcoin has high fees and long confirmation times, and be due to the full blocks that are intentionally being advocated by Bitcoin Core and Core supporters, they openly say that the blocks need to be full all the time, that we need to have a fee market there. That undermines Bitcoin's usefulness as money. And so maybe I'm one of the better communicators and one of the more public figures on this side of the debate, but there are a huge number of people that understand that in order for Bitcoin to be useful as money, it has to have low fees and be easy to use and have your transactions included in the next block right away. And if that's not the case, people are going to start using something other than Bitcoin. And so that's very, very damaging for Bitcoin. It's damaging for the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's damaging for people who hold Bitcoin because it undermines the value of the Bitcoins that they're holding. It's damaging to Bitcoin.com's future business prospects. It's damaging to the entire Bitcoin ecosystem. And it's 10 a.m. here in Tokyo. When I woke up this morning, the latest news today is that Storj or storage or however you pronounce that one is no longer going to be using Bitcoin. They're going to be using Ethereum, and it's happening time and time again. We're seeing more and more businesses switch to something other than Bitcoin, and we're seeing all the new capital coming into the crypto market space going into things other than Bitcoin because the blocks are full and the user experience of people trying to make a Bitcoin transaction is poorer than ever before. And I know we said we were going to save the scaling debate for a little bit later, but for me, just this is the biggest issue that needs to be resolved in Bitcoin. It needs to be resolved right away. And that's why I'm so worried for this. And that's why I'm spending so much time every day talking about this as publicly as I possibly can.
Well, yeah. So in theory, if this fork happens, I mean, you want this fork to happen soon, and the forked Bitcoin wins and becomes the real Bitcoin, you are going to be the new Satoshi Nakamoto of this version of Bitcoin. You position yourself that way, whether you like it or not. And what will happen?
I don't really think that that's fair either.
But you're you are the face of it. And so I'm wondering what will happen to the price of this forked Bitcoin when the US or the Japanese government try to imprison you. I mean, that it's something that has to be considered here. It has to be considered. This new coin, this new version is very much associated with you. And I mean, the media's contacting you about it. They associate you with it. I mean, I see a weakness in what could happen here. I mean, what would happen if they tried to imprison you?
I would probably wind up going to prison is what would happen. And of course, I don't want that to happen. And even with the current version of Bitcoin, as the CEO of Bitcoin.com, I'm plenty susceptible to governments. If I go to prison, I'm lucky. Governments drop bombs and kill people all over the world every single day. So as long as I'm alive, that's better than the ways a lot of people around the world are being treated by governments. So.
But this is the thing here. We're going to go from having the founder of the coin being Satoshi Nakamoto to the founder of the coin being Roger Ver. And if Roger Ver
I completely reject your premise here. I completely reject your premise. The founder of Bitcoin Unlimited is the same Bitcoin that we have now, just with blocks that are a little bit bigger than the ones that we have today. The Genesis block was still created by Satoshi Nakamoto. It's the same chain. It's the same blockchain. I completely reject your premise that I would be the founder of some new coin.
They will have a guy to point to. And if you are arrested, the price will be destroyed. They cannot, it's just with Satoshi, he will not be arrested. He will not be captured. If this fork happens, there's a change of mentality that's going to happen. And it's just, you will have initiated a change. They will be able to point to it. They don't understand what the heck Bitcoin is, but they're going to say, hey, this is the new Bitcoin now. This is the new guy. We got our guy. We're going after him now. I can foresee that.
We'll do absolutely nothing to stop Bitcoin or slow Bitcoin down. Bitcoin's, tens of millions of people around the world using it. So if I go to jail, Bitcoin will be just fine without me.
Now, going back, there was a tweet that you had on March 17th, and it was about there was an African kid photo on it, and it's linked to below. And it said, most people in the world have no value to store. So Bitcoin needs to function as a payment network in order to be useful to them. And then there was a caption that said, I'm supposed to use Bitcoin as a store of value when the fees are more than I earn in a day. Have you been to Africa before? Have you been there?
No, I have not.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe you don't know the origin of that picture. That
But I mean,
photo is one of the most famous memes on the internet. So it's a photo that people make memes out of all the time. And if you go to any meme generator, that's one of the top photos that people use to make memes out of. So we don't even know if that photo was taken in Africa or anywhere else.
well, it looked like a typical Sally Struthers African type of picture, But I was in Zimbabwe and Mozambique and South Africa and Namibia for 2 months, very recently. And I got to tell you, payment networks and coffee and the things that you bring up, it's just, they're not issues there. And I would encourage you, actually, there are guys that I know there. They're the Roger Veres of South Africa, the Roger Veres of Zimbabwe, Tawanda Kembo and Lauren Gamaroff. Talk to these guys. They support SegWit. And I mean, Bitcoin already sells at a premium in Zimbabwe the way it is right now. So, I mean, I see the point that you're trying to make, but I think on the ground, in at least the developing countries I was physically in, Bitcoin is very much fine as is, and payment networks and coffee are just not things of what people care about.
So more people support the US dollar than support SegWit. That doesn't mean that the US dollar is a superior payment network than SegWit-enabled Bitcoin. How often do you use Bitcoin yourself for payments?
Oh no, I don't use it for that at all, because I don't believe it's not a purpose that it's not an interest of mine. And I've seen where I've traveled, the people use it as a store of value in these Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa. I mean, not all of South Africa.
How often do you actually make a Bitcoin payment on the Bitcoin network yourself?
No, I don't. I don't use it. I buy and hold Bitcoin. And I think that's what 95% of the people are doing right now. I think you want to, you see it your way. You want to help your business out. I mean, because you ask this question all the time. You ask Tone that question, and you belittle people that way. You belittle people that way. That's one of your techniques. It's an emotional technique. Use your technique on me. Use it.
Okay. So I think it's interesting though, because this is 3 out of 3 for the people in public debates that I've asked this question. All 3 of them said that they rarely use Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin every single day to pay people all over the world. An average day, probably several tens of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin. I use to pay various bills and various things that are happening here. The Bitcoin network is less usable than it's ever been ever before. The reason Bitcoin has a value of $1,000 today is because so many people are using it in commerce, and that gives it liquidity on the markets. And because it has that liquidity, other people are willing to use it as a store of value. If Bitcoin isn't able to be used as a means of payment in commerce, it won't be useful as a store of value either. So that's what has me so concerned, is that Bitcoin's ability to be used as a payment network is being incredibly undermined. And if you undermine Bitcoin's ability to be used as a means of payment, it destroys Bitcoin's use case as a store of value as well. So it has to be both of those things, or it will be neither of those things. So if people like me are no longer able to use Bitcoin in commerce and to pay people around the world, people like you won't be able to use it as a store of value either.
I disagree. People are just people use it to transfer money out of their countries. I mean, to send
and the ability
value
to use Bitcoin to send money out of their countries is being undermined by high fees and long confirmation delays.
No, they don't care. In Zimbabwe, they wait 8 hours to get $50 out of the bank. It doesn't. They don't care about time there. I mean, time is not.
People care about time all over the world. Some people's time is worth more than others. I can tell you right now, people that use Bitcoin in commerce are very, very upset with the user experience compared to what it used to be. And that poor user experience in Bitcoin is directly being caused by the full blocks and the long confirmation delays and high fees. Let me give you an example. With Bitcoin.com, you can buy Bitcoin with a credit card. Every time someone buys a credit card, we get a little bit of a cut of the fee that's on that. And the company that's handling all of that sends us the payments to one particular Bitcoin address. And we hadn't moved any of those funds for a couple of months until maybe a month and a half ago. That address had accumulated about $13,000 worth of Bitcoin at the current Bitcoin exchange rate. So we went to move the Bitcoins from that one Bitcoin address to another Bitcoin address. So from one address to another address. It cost about $400 in fees to move those Bitcoins from one address to another address because it had a bunch of individual payments to that address. Paying $400 to move money on the Bitcoin network is not what Bitcoin was all about. Bitcoin doesn't scale infinitely on chain, but it can scale a whole lot from where it is today. But I hear a lot of these core people saying Bitcoin can't scale infinitely on chain, so we shouldn't try at all. And that's completely backwards. There's 1,001 other competing cryptocurrencies that would love to take Bitcoin's top spot in the market. If Bitcoin doesn't provide them with the best user experience it possibly can, they're going to start using things other than Bitcoin. And we've seen that in the last couple of weeks. The Bitcoin price has been relatively stable, but its share of the overall crypto coin market cap has plummeted while altcoins have skyrocketed. That means that all the new money that's coming into the crypto coin ecosystem is going into things other than Bitcoin recently. And that's due to the full blocks, high fees, and poor user experience that creates. And the thing that has me so concerned with the core team is they openly advocate that they want full blocks and high fees, and that full blocks and high fees destroy the user experience of Bitcoin and push people to use something other than Bitcoin. That's why I'm so concerned about this issue.
That statistic doesn't prove that all, but you said all the new money is pouring into altcoins. That's not
the vast
true.
majority.
That's unprovable. It's the speculators are selling some of their the people that see uncertainty in Bitcoin that have been holding Bitcoin. Some of them are flipping into altcoins. There's all sorts of flippers playing games out there. I mean, it's hard to.
Sure, but when the price of Bitcoin in dollars stays about the same, and its share of the overall crypto coin market cap plummets, that means that the vast majority of the new money, and maybe, the vast majority of the new money is winding up going into altcoins, because Bitcoin's price in dollars stayed about the same, but its share of the overall crypto coin market cap plummeted, right? And altcoins skyrocketed. That meant the new money coming into the Bitcoin ecosystem either went into Bitcoin and all the Bitcoin people jumped ship to altcoins, which I think is unlikely. I think what's much more likely is all the new money coming in went into altcoins and not into Bitcoin. And that's why Ethereum and Dash and Monero and all these other ones have been skyrocketing recently. Whether or not you think they're a scam or they're horrible, you can't deny the fact that their market caps have been increasing very, very quickly while Bitcoin has stagnated.
It can't be denied that their market caps have been going up. But to say that new people can easily buy Dash and buy some of these other ones, I'm not saying Ethereum, but the other ones, that's not true. It's very difficult for new money to acquire some of these altcoins. But I mean, we're getting stuck on one point here.
It's not easy. It's not, if I can add one thing, it's not as easy today as it is for them to buy Bitcoin, but it's getting easier and easier by the day. We're seeing exchanges like Kraken and Bitfinex and others implementing US dollar or euro or fiat, government issued fiat currency pairs trading to altcoins now. And the more of that happens, the less Bitcoin is the center of this ecosystem. And that should be really, really frightening for anybody who's using Bitcoins as a store of value.
Now, again, you always tell the story about the $400 charge that you got for moving the Bitcoin, or a story that's like that. And so the question is okay, you want to do it your way, but other people want to do it the SegWit way. Why don't we just give SegWit a shot? I mean, if it's, again, I don't think right now that many people want to buy Starbucks coffee with their Bitcoin.
Certainly not when they're paying an extra $1 for the fees on the Bitcoin network. Of course not. Nobody wants to use Bitcoin when it costs $1 a transaction.
I mean, the people who get into Bitcoin, I'm saying, aren't interested in it for that reason. If they were, they would say, hey, Mr. Starbucks, why don't you start accepting Litecoin? I don't want to pay these high fees. I mean,
my goal is to get everybody in the entire world to be using something other than government issued fiat currencies, because that undermines every single government on the entire planet's ability to control people and wage war and drop bombs and murder people. That's what we want to have happen. And if cryptocurrencies aren't more convenient than the competitors, people aren't going to be using them. And that's very, very frustrating, because the utility of Bitcoin is actively and intentionally being undermined by the Bitcoin core team by advocating for full blocks and high fees.
So now you said before that you don't want to be the face of this. You're not the face of this. What is your relationship with, because people have asked about these specific people, Eric Voorhees and John McAfee. Do they have anything to do with this?
I've been friends with Eric Voorhees for about 6 years. I met him through Bitcoin. His first business card he handed me said, "I'm friends with Satoshi," which definitely caught my attention. So you can ask him sometime if he knows who Satoshi is. But John McAfee, my relationship is very minimal. He's also considers himself an anarchist. I've done some consulting for his business group, and met him in person twice, I think, but I don't talk to him on a regular basis. He's busy with his business, and I'm busy with mine.
Okay, so there's no overlap between your two businesses, or you're not partnering with John McAfee in any way.
No, I'm an advisor for his business, and he can choose to take my advice or not. And my advice at the moment is to mine Bitcoin Unlimited blocks and support a sane economic policy for the future roadmap of Bitcoin.
So speaking
And for
about
Eric Voorhees, I'm an investor in his Shapeshift.io.
okay, so tell us about this Jihan Wu fellow. He sounds like a James Bond supervillain or something.
Yeah, the entire Bitcoin ecosystem owes a debt of gratitude to Jihan Wu. Jihan Wu is the CEO of Bitmain, the most successful Bitcoin-related business ever in the entire history of the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's more successful than Coinbase. It's more successful than blockchain. It's more successful than Zappo or anybody else out there. So he started the most successful Bitcoin company in the entire world that sells their Bitcoin miners to anyone, anywhere in the world who wants to buy them. Strongly supports, and his degree is in economics, right? And he understands that if you undermine the utility of Bitcoin in commerce, you undermine everything about Bitcoin. And that's why Jihan Wu has been so strongly in favor of not undermining the usefulness of Bitcoin. It's very interesting. His mining company sells miners to anyone in the world who wants to buy them. Bitfury, the strongest mining company in support of SegWit and Core, they don't sell their miners to anybody. You have to have like $1 million something bucks to buy any of their mining equipment. They don't sell their miners to home miners or hobbyists. Very, very interesting. And their mining pool isn't open to the public. You can't mine on their mining pool. Whereas Jihan of Bitmain, his mining pool is open to the public. Anybody can mine on it. And the majority of the hash rate on his mining pool is just members of the Bitcoin public. So to try and demonize Bitcoin as a supervillain is the exact opposite. Jihan has done more to help the Bitcoin community than just about anybody.
So you'd consider him an honorable man. He's a trustworthy, honorable man then.
I haven't had too many direct business interactions with him, but generally to grow a business of that size, you have to be a trustworthy, honorable guy, or people aren't going to do business with you.
Well, so he's building a big facility in the middle of China there. I mean, in order to do something like that, you've got to be a good businessman, obviously, but do you have to know someone in the Chinese government? I mean, he's got to have some connections. He's got to, I mean, in order to build something that tremendous in the middle of China, not anyone can just do that.
I'm not Chinese. I don't live in China. I don't know. But my impression is in China, you can do pretty much whatever the heck you want, as long as you don't speak out against the Chinese government. That's been my experience for my business dealings with people in China.
Okay, so basically, China, they practice some censorship there. Then if you're gonna get on their bad side, that's it. And I mean, they don't let certain things in there. I mean, what do you? And I've asked you about I mean, do you want to comment on the Chinese government here, or can you comment on the Chinese government? Because I mean, you're a guy who talks about you don't like Reddit censoring you. You say Reddit has censored you, but then we've got this country, China, which is it can be quite a censor, and it's on a whole new level there. So I see some issues here.
Yeah, of course, I'm not a supporter of the Chinese government. The Chinese Great Firewall of China is one of the most economically destructive things in the modern world, right? It just slows down the entire world's rate of economic growth by people having to deal with this stupid firewall. Absolutely, incredibly, horribly destructive. Hopefully, one day soon, we can use Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies to influence the Great Firewall of China to be torn down, just like the Berlin Wall was torn down one day. I look forward to helping to make that happen. But so, of course, I'm not a fan of the Chinese government. The Chinese government's done lots of horrible, horrible things, killed lots and lots of people. So has the US government. So have most governments around the world. I don't support governments. You're not going to get me to say that I'm a fan of the Chinese government or any other government for that matter.
Good. I don't want you to be. And I'm just, a lot of people assume or put some things together that Jihan has to be favored by the Chinese government in order to have an operation there. The size
I don't think that's the case. So I was doing lots of business with businesses in China long before Bitcoin. I was dealing with a bunch of contract manufacturers there, and they build big giant factories with hundreds of employees and build all these electronic parts. And my impression for the most part is you can do whatever you want as long as you don't step on the toes of politicians and speak out against government stuff.
Do you support a segregated witness in Litecoin? And did you have an opinion about Litecoin?
I've never owned a single Litecoin. I've never had a Litecoin wallet. I've never had anything to do with Litecoin in any way. I love Charlie Lee. Charlie Lee's a great guy. He was mining a bunch of his Bitcoins in my office in Santa Clara, California with his hardware back in 2011 and 2012. I'm not blocking SegWit on Litecoin. I don't, people that own Litecoin can do whatever they want. I'm not involved with that in any way whatsoever. So to accuse me of blocking SegWit and Litecoin is just tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. I have nothing to do with that in any way.
I'm definitely not accusing you of doing that. I'm saying that I'm disappointed that you've never really used them in any way, because they could be used as a great test net for Bitcoin. And I don't understand. I think you should engage them and their community and experiment there and prove your stuff there with what your developers are trying to do there before you take it to the big show with Bitcoin. And I think, you know, you're big.
You're free to test your SegWit on Litecoin. Go for it. So
they're trying to test SegWit on Litecoin first. They are trying to do that. And I would assume that you guys would try to do the same thing there. It's a unique opportunity, and I think
you guys do the same thing. What can you clarify that for me, please?
Just
test
using the test
on
net.
Litecoin, or what do you?
Yeah, whatever it takes. Play around there before doing it on Bitcoin.
So it's worth noting that segregated witness is a much bigger change to Bitcoin and the way Bitcoin has worked than Bitcoin Unlimited. So when I first got involved in Bitcoin, the blocks were about 5 kilobytes, and then they grew to 10 kilobytes, and then 100 kilobytes, then half a megabyte, and then 3/4 of a megabyte, and now they're 1 megabyte. Letting that grow to 1.1 megabyte isn't that big of a change, whereas SegWit's a much bigger change.
All right, so we're talking about altcoins real quick. People want to know, I saw or I heard about a presentation where you brought up Zcash, Monero, Zcoin, and Dash. What are your opinions on those coins? I mean, especially Dash. Dash has been in the news, and you said you purchased some Dash. So give us some Dash info. How much you own, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I own exactly 42.3 Dash. Just kidding. With Bitcoin, I see Bitcoin having two giant problems at the moment. One is the scaling issue, which needs to be resolved. The second is privacy. The privacy of Bitcoin is much weaker than we initially thought. When I first got involved in Bitcoin, everyone thought Bitcoin was basically anonymous and basically as good as anonymous. Today, we know that is nowhere near the case. So the instant the scalability issues with Bitcoin are solved, we need to solve the fungibility issues with Bitcoin. So when I became upset with the scaling issues of Bitcoin and I looked to diversify into some altcoins, the altcoins that I looked for were ones that weren't likely to bump into the same scaling issues. And the scaling issues with the Bitcoin at the moment are social problems, not technical problems. So I looked for coins that I didn't think were going to have the scaling issues that Bitcoin's having. And I looked for coins that had better privacy than Bitcoin. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm not so interested in Litecoin. Litecoin has more scaling headroom than Bitcoin at the moment, but it doesn't really have any better privacy than Bitcoin at the moment. So I chose to buy some Dash, which has a little bit better privacy than Bitcoin and seems to have more scalability. It doesn't seem to have the same social scaling problems that Bitcoin has. Monero is another one, has a dynamic block size, much stronger privacy than Bitcoin. And Zcash and Zcoin are the two other ones that have stronger privacy than Bitcoin and hopefully won't run into the same social scaling issues that Bitcoin's having. So I bought some of all of those last August. So, and all of those are up much more than Bitcoin's been up in the same period of time. But it was a very small percentage of my net worth that I moved into those altcoins. My Bitcoin holdings are still somewhere in the high 90% percentage points of my crypto coin holdings. It's in Bitcoin. I've seen some conspiracy theories on the internet that I bought a whole bunch of Bitcoins and now I'm trying to destroy Bitcoin to increase the value of my altcoin holdings. Nothing can be farther from the truth. I'm the CEO of Bitcoin.com. I hold a huge amount of Bitcoins. I want to do absolutely everything I can to make sure Bitcoin succeeds for everybody around the world. And the best way to do that is to make sure as many people around the world are using Bitcoin, because that provides additional protection from governments trying to come in and regulate Bitcoin. If we have 1 billion plus people using Bitcoin, governments will no longer be able to demonize Bitcoin as something that's only used by, drug dealers and bad people on the internet, because people say, no, I use Bitcoin to buy my Starbucks. Bitcoin's great.
All right, I wanted to say, everyone, like this video. We've got 277 live viewers right now, so like this video. There's some news came out today. There's going to be a Bitcoin scaling meeting. I don't think they quoted you in it. It's going to be May, this scaling meeting. Or do you plan to attend this meeting?
I want to attend. I have some other personal issues that may prevent me from being able to attend, so we'll see. But there's been lots of other meetings like that in the past. Nothing really came of them, and up to this point, Core hasn't offered any sort of compromise at all, ever, on anything. So I'm not really optimistic that that's going to change on their part at this point. But if it does change, I'd love to hear it. Bitcoin's in big trouble, and if Bitcoin isn't allowed to scale, something else is going to continue to eat into its market share, and that's a sad day for every Bitcoin lover on every side of this debate.
Well, we shall see about that. Now, I have a question. What do you see? Some people see Bitcoin as a savings account. I mean, do you see Bitcoin as a savings account, as a way for savings?
The only reason people would be willing to save in Bitcoin or anything else is so that they can spend it later. And if you undermine Bitcoin's spendability, then you undermine people's reason to want to save in it. So it needs to be both.
Okay, it's back to the main talking point here. I get it. I get it, definitely. Well, here's someone has sent this suggestion to me, and I want to hear what you think of it. He said, this is for you. Use the software that his team of developers has created to start a new cryptocurrency and start from block zero. He says if that happens, Bitcoin would hit 1,500 in days. Everyone respects Roger. Everyone wins. Roger has the option of dumping his Bitcoin into his new cryptocurrency. Speaking for myself, this person said, I would invest in this new coin. It would probably double in value in the first week, even if only 10% of the miners support the new coin. That is more than enough hash power once the difficulty value has been adjusted. What do you think about that?
I think that's not very interesting to me because Bitcoin already has this giant network effect of merchants and users and savers and holders and everybody else. And it's also worth pointing out that right now today, Bitcoin Unlimited is mining around 40% of all the blocks. Bitcoin Unlimited is mining more blocks than any other version of the Bitcoin client at all. So Bitcoin Unlimited has about 40%. Older versions of non-SegWit supporting Bitcoin Core are mining about another, I don't know, 35% or something there. And then SegWit has about 25%. So Bitcoin Unlimited is mining more blocks than any other version of Bitcoin right now today.
Well, I heard that the nodes were supporting the SegWit, like 85%. There's some tweak going on out there, 90%.
So it's hard to know. And so Bitcoin.com is running a bunch of Bitcoin Unlimited nodes. All of those Bitcoin Unlimited nodes are signaling to the rest of the network that they are Bitcoin Core nodes. Because if you signal that your node is a Bitcoin Unlimited node, a bunch of people that think it's okay to do, DDoS attacks on the internet will start attacking your node and trying to bump it off the system. So it's pretty much all these mining pools that are running Bitcoin Unlimited blocks. Their nodes are identifying themselves to the rest of the network as Bitcoin Core rather than Bitcoin Unlimited. So we don't actually know the exact number of Bitcoin Core versus Bitcoin Unlimited nodes on the network because of all these DDoS attacks that are going on anybody who tries to run a Bitcoin Unlimited node publicly.
Now, if you fork off your coin here, and right now there's a Bitfinex chart out there that estimates what it would be worth, that it would be worth like $300 a coin. With that estimation, it would be the number 2 in market cap in terms of cryptocurrencies out there. I mean, would you be willing to go for that? Or, I mean,
so with how biased the terms are on the Bitfinex contract, I'm amazed that the Bitcoin Unlimited coin even has that high of a price. The way the contract's written is if there is no fork at all, or if Core agrees to come along with Bitcoin Unlimited, then anybody who sells the Bitcoin Core coins for Bitcoin Unlimited coins on there, you lose 100% of your investment. So it's incredibly biased in favor of Core. So if Core comes along with Bitcoin Unlimited, people on my side of the debate lose 100% of their investment. Or if there's no fork at all, people on my side lose 100% of their investment. So it's a really, really biased way in which that contract is set up. So the fact that Bitcoin Unlimited has a price that high in there shows that there's a lot of economic support when people are, the fact that people are willing to take that high of a risk on that sort of a contract that's so incredibly biased. Hopefully some other exchange will write a contract that's a bit more fair on for people on both sides of the fork.
Okay, so they have their estimation technique. But okay, so let's forget their estimation technique right now. Will
Well,
you?
don't you think it's unfair
Will,
if there's no fork at all? The person with the Bitcoin Unlimited coins gets nothing, and the core person gets 100%.
I haven't studied their estimated. I haven't studied the numbers behind it, how they got to that number exactly. I'm just looking at the numbers, but let's forget that $300 number for a second. But do you want to let this thing go to the public if it's number two to the other Bitcoin in terms of coin market cap, or less than the Ethereum market cap, which it
So
very well could be.
I'm confident that people that own Bitcoins and hold Bitcoins and run businesses and have capital realize that Bitcoin needs to be the most useful money we possibly can make it. And Bitcoin Core's roadmap doesn't do that. So that's why we're seeing more and more people supporting Bitcoin Unlimited, more and more Bitcoin Unlimited blocks, more and more businesses, more and more everything are supporting it. Economic pressure is going to win out in the end. The smart thing is going to happen in the end. So there's no reason to fork off into a completely separate coin. I think when the fork happens, 100% or 99 point something percent of people are all going to go in the same direction, because there's such a strong incentive for everybody to stay on the same chain. So that it'll almost be like when the fork happens, it wasn't really a fork at all because everybody went in the same direction. I think that's the most likely thing to happen.
Okay, we have these node numbers showing the opposite. And then if you check out social media on Twitter, I mean, seems overwhelming that the support is for SegWit. I mean, that's what I'm viewing. So you're saying XYZ is going to happen. All these people are going to switch over, and you talk a good game. You talk a very good game. I think you talk a good game based on emotion and everything. But I think the hardcore numbers out there, it's showing
so
that
Adam,
people, yes.
I'd like to point out, so it wasn't emotion that got me excited about Bitcoin when it was less than $1. It was that I understood that Bitcoin was the best form of money that the world has ever seen, and that people were naturally going to start using Bitcoin as money. That wasn't from emotion. That was from my studying of economics previously. And it's that same knowledge that's in my head that tells me right now that if Bitcoin doesn't continue to be the most useful form of money, people are going to start using something else. So yes, I'm emotional about it because it's important to me and because most of my savings are in Bitcoin, but it's the knowledge in my head from studying economics that tells me that Bitcoin is on the wrong path with Bitcoin Core and is on the right path with Bitcoin Unlimited.
Well, the true Bitcoin will be decided by the people. And perhaps, I mean, they might not be on the same page as you. I think you're very confident that they will be, and you present a confident face, definitely. But
so go over to vote.bitcoin.com, where people can vote with their Bitcoin addresses that actually hold Bitcoins. And there's something like $100 million worth of Bitcoin have voted that they don't support Core's roadmap and they support the bigger block roadmap. And that's something that can't be gamed like Twitter or Facebook or the censored our Bitcoin. Go take a look at vote.bitcoin.com. It's open source. People have voted with more than $100 million worth of Bitcoin that they're opposed to Core's roadmap.
But again, you know, with that vote, it's not one man, one vote. It's how much Bitcoin that you have. So it can be gamed. You get a few guys that have 100 Bitcoin each and tell them, hey, vote for, come over here, 100 Bitcoin. It's gonna skew it there.
People with 100 Bitcoin each probably understood Bitcoin well enough to wind up attracting and saving enough money in Bitcoin because they understood it well.
In theory, they just got it lucked out and got a bunch of it a long time ago or something too. I mean, we don't know where they're coming from on that, but
I don't think it's really fair to say, even with how difficult it is to get Bitcoin today, I don't think it's fair to say that people that are holding Bitcoin today are just lucky. I assume you hold some Bitcoin yourself today. That wasn't luck. It's because you like Bitcoin and you think that Bitcoin is a useful store of value. So you went out and bought some and you're using it to save money yourself. That's not luck. That's because you like Bitcoin.
There's a little bit of luck involved when a timing. If a person, when considering what the price is, that the person wouldn't have purchased 100 in the present when they purchased 100 in the recent past. I mean, there's always a little bit of luck involved in these things. So I mean, that's neither here nor there, I guess. But I think that there's this movement that you have. You have sincere reasons behind it. It's obvious, and I think it has caused some of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, that, you know, oh, the price, look at how bad the price is doing, and then the price starts doing bad because people out there start worrying about it and taking it too seriously and thinking that the numbers are against them. But again, from what I'm seeing, and we're seeing two different things here, and time will tell. I don't see the support for your side that you are conveying. I see a lot of confidence coming from you, and I give you credit for being able to exude that confidence. But I don't see the support.
Well, take a look at vote.bitcoin.com. $100 million of support is not trolls on the internet. So,
okay. Well, the trolls on the internet, the people on Twitter are not all trolls on the internet. I don't think they'd like that.
I'm on Twitter and I'm not a troll. So
yeah, definitely. All right then. Well, we've been here now for the 48 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Let's see if anyone has. There's probably too many questions here. All right.
And maybe I can close on a positive note if that is okay with you.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine.
So, I'd like to point out that despite all the things that I'm saying about why I'm worried for the future of Bitcoin, there's more reason to be positive about Bitcoin today than ever before. There's more people around the world using Bitcoin than ever before. There's more merchants, there's more news coverage, there's more podcasts, there's more YouTube shows. There's more stuff happening in Bitcoin today than ever before. So Bitcoin is in a fantastic position from that respect. But we need to make sure that Bitcoin continues to be the most useful form of money the world has ever seen. And if that doesn't continue, watch out, because there's a lot of crypto coin competitors out there that would like to take the top spot. But there's more reason to be positive about Bitcoin today than ever before. So thank you for giving me a voice on your show today to state my side of the argument. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being on. Fair competition is definitely a good thing. That I have no problem with that. All right, everyone. So that's today's show. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time for This Week in Bitcoin. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the things that we talked about today. The guests will be Lauren Gamaroff, Renegade Investor, and Tone Bays, 4 p.m. on this very channel. So I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye, everyone.